I mean, to believe in the Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory, because this is an avowed plan. I mean, there's no amount of conspiracy theory necessary in order to believe that this project is something that some people believe in and are attempting to purvey to the broader public that are trying to get taken up, their initiatives taken up in the social body. The Great Reset is really a propaganda campaign that was initiated by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab in the United Nations, and it's an effort to reset the economy and really reset the whole social structure. One of the main premises of it is that global warming is an imminent danger and an imminent threat to civilization, and I think they firmly believe it, and they want to reset the economy in the terms of carbon use and also consumption in general. So there's a lot of consumption changes they're looking for, a reduction in consumption in the first world, first of all, and then a kind of leveling of consumption across the globe, because they talk about a fairer, greener future. So fairer is to be fair, what they mean by that is equitable, and by equitable what they mean is basically everybody consuming the same amount. And this is not based on any kind of merit, this is just that consumption should be level across the world. And that's really what they're aiming at, and they're using various techniques and means by which to bring this about. One of them is by cajoling corporations into accepting their ideas and then enacting them through various means. One of them is the environmental, social, and governance score, which is a way to get corporations to abide by the environmental precepts that they have in mind, the social, which is really social justice precepts, and the governance precepts, which really have to do with how well do they cooperate with the state. So this ESG score is huge. It is being used by, for example, BlackRock Inc. Larry Fink, BlackRock Inc. sent a letter to CEOs in the beginning of the year in which he basically, it really is an implicit threat. If you do not abide by, or if your index is low, you will not see investments in your companies. And this is the largest, BlackRock Inc. is the largest asset manager in the world. And so when somebody like Larry Fink says, if you don't abide by this ESG score, if you don't get your ESG score up high, you won't see investments, that's very serious talk. That means that you'll be starved out of capital. And so this is a way to direct capital to what I consider to be like approved producers and distributors, and to starve off others. And I see it as ending in the Great Reset as ending in a two-tiered structure, in effect, of basically corporate monopolists on top and a kind of actually existing socialism on the ground. That perplexed you?
Well, what does actually existing socialism on the ground mean exactly?
Okay, well, you know what? You've heard the phrase actually existing socialism. This was the phrase used by dissidents in the Soviet Union and elsewhere to describe what life's really like under socialism, rather than in the treatises of Marx and others. Okay, so this is it's a very ironic, kind of sarcastic term that's meant to criticize socialism without saying anything really, actually existing socialism. So why I use that phrase in connection with this is that socialism never ends it never is established in the way that it's claimed to be. It's never the working class taking over the means of production and the complete control or democratic economic democracy. This is never how it ends up. It has to be controlled. Since you take away prices and you take away a free market, you have to have somebody deciding what's made and what's sold, and who can buy it, and so on and so forth. So it's a command economy. So I use actually existing socialism because this is a socialism that's not according to the textbook. It's not according to the founders of Marxian socialism. It's not according to their plan, but it's the way it turns out a lot of the time. That is, you have a ruling elite that controls the resources and effect, and you have everyone else on the ground and effectively equal, but equally miserable, equally repressed, and so on and so forth. So that's why I use the term actually existing socialism to refer to that. And what I mean by that is there's a two-tiered system. You have kind of a corporate monopoly class on top with the state, and then you have sort of the broad population living in a kind of stasis, economic stasis, without much prospects. Because after all, according to the World Economic Forum, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. And that's in their words.
Right. Well, I mean, so I think it was argued that this was just one possible future. What you're describing right now. And so, but that's interesting because in this book, the sort of the whole vision for the actual Great Reset, the title of the book, is outlined.
Right.
I don't think the outcome that you're describing is outlined.
They don't tell you what it would come out to, but I think that's implicit in what they're saying.
But the main thing is it's not sort of someone up there.
No.
Exactly.
This is not a puppeteer, pulling strings, effectively, some evil oligarch. We're not seeing that kind of manipulation. What we're seeing is kind of a ideology and propaganda. So what ties it all together is ideology, and then the way it's transmitted is through propaganda. It's not like a fait accompli, that's for sure. This is not necessarily going to happen, and if I have my way, it won't. And I know many others who agree. But this is the kind of campaign that they're undertaking, and it's an effort on their part. It's an effort to bring this about.
And so this is the really interesting part, because again, going back to this book, it's actually the premise is that coronavirus, or the CCP virus as we call it here at the Epoch Times, pandemic, is the opportunity to really push this kind of agenda forward faster, right? That's the premise. And I can't help but think about some of what's happening in Australia, right? Where there's a lot of, really, I think unarguably authoritarian type initiatives being implemented in the name of saving society.
Right.
Right?
Indeed. In fact, we see the kind of erosion of the independent producers, of the sort of independent entrepreneurial middle class being destroyed. Where you have basically, by the way, in Australia, from what I've read, a good 50 to 60% of the population is actually behind. They agree with this, with the lockdowns and the whole sort of draconian approach that's being taken there. So, but a lot of those people happen to be employed by the state, or they have institutional positions that really aren't touched by this. They can, basically, they're part of the laptop class, they can work from home. They're not bothered by this at all, so they seem to be in support of it. Yet there's the whole, shall we say, the sort of the middling business class that's being crushed. And we saw the same thing in the United States with the lockdowns here. So this, it kind of supports my theory about where this heads, because it heads to this kind of bifurcation of society into this kind of corporate state monopoly over everything, and then the basic eradication of the middle class producer, and a two-tiered system, and the abrogation of rights. There was a manhunt for someone who sneezed in an elevator. I mean, in Australia. They shot dogs because people might have rescued them. So, I mean, this is just, it's just crazy. So the rights have been destroyed, and they seem to think, I guess the majority seems to think this is temporary. But I worry about that.